So yeah, we're gonna go through what have I got? Inner Hallways. That's a good one. There's some cool echo and effects and that kind of stuff. Maybe we should listen to the original first. Castlevania. Is that what it's called? No. There's another name on it. Let me just check the YouTube channel. I had it as Inner Hallways because that was the name of the MIDI file. Inside the castle? No, that wasn't it. Just bear with me. Is that this one? Oh, go away, go away, go away, go away, go away, go away. And that's the one. Okay, so let's just go past the annoying ads. Anyway, so this is the sound of the cover. Let me swap here so this was the cover. Let's listen to the original first, and then we'll go through the actual cover afterwards. Hey, Gibron, how are you doing? Anyway, you get the idea. It's quite in your face. It's pretty fast, and the sound of the Game Boy is not helping the tune and the composition, which is actually quite stellar. So this is the cover, played directly in the DAW. Also, we're gonna need some real stream standalone to send the sound to here. Okay. Is that playing? Is that playing? Oh no, I know why. I know why. I need oh yeah, I'm sorry. I need to enable the VST in Streamlabs. We'll get there, folks. We'll get there. We'll get there. I'm just gonna go to a different scene, this one, and steal the Real Stream plugin. It should be seamless for you. There you go. Now let's just try again. Anyway, this is the cover. You're going to hear everything about it this evening. So we're going to try and keep this to an hour from now, essentially. So, so this is Castlevania Legends from on the Game Boy, Highest Castle Floor. So when I heard the tune initially, I was like, okay, this is a high octane tune, very fast. There's a lot going on, and we need to take things down like in the mix, because everything is sort of competing sound wise. If you listen to the original, there's just so much going on, so much happening, so many instruments in the same place. Can you hear me properly? By the way, is the sound okay? I'm going to bring this closer to my my mouth. So when I record it, usually what you'll find is in my so this is all the tracks that I've used. So there's quite a lot. How many? 32 altogether, including the original MIDI tracks, which are about 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tracks. So yeah, the channels are fighting together, and they're just really hard to get. So obviously using instruments is going to open up the sound escape a little bit. It's just going to, because not every instrument is going to compete with the next one for space in the exact same spectrum, which is what happens on something like the Game Boy, or all the square wave generators, or is it square waves in the Game Boy? Can't remember. Let me get the second screen here, second window. There you go, and we'll have a bit more space. So usually I try to arrange my my cover physically the same ways. I'll keep the lead instrument at the top because it's the one that's going to take me the most attention initially. Right underneath, I'll put the harmony to that lead instrument, if there's one, or the other lead instruments. In this case, we have the accordion here, and we have 2 flutes. Sounds like there's one, but it's 2 flutes. Below that, I have, I think, is more accordion backing. You see, actually, I did really, I was good initially. I tagged every instrument, and then here I forgot to tag them, so the rest is kind of free for all. I can recognize rhythm tracks all here. Usually when you have something like that, it's all my my drum and rhythm sections. The big plain one usually is the bouzouki, and I keep the bouzouki with one hard left, hard right. You can see it's band left and right, and a center track. And then I keep the bass usually in the brown color. It's I don't know why. And here the accordion, usually I keep the red and the white for accordion. So I'm guessing these are accordion tracks as well. Red and white because the accordion is red and the keys are white. So typically that's what I use. I would either use the chords in red and do stuff that's played on the keys on the white color. In this case, I'm suspecting I did the opposite for some odd reason. So the lead, I'll start with that. The lead is rather straightforward. It's just a fast lead. The first thing I did is actually I slowed down the tune. I think it's at 165. I slowed it down to 158 just because, you know, I wanted to be able to play that fast lick, which you'll hear is quite fast. And I wanted it to be clean. So that, I mean, I could suppose technically you could have played it faster, but it just, at that speed, I just find my technique was a lot cleaner and a lot tidier. And you were G Brown, you were going to bed when you saw he was live. Thought some music winning, yeah. Oh, cool. You thought some music would be nice to relax. Yeah, I'm not going to make music. I'm just going to explain stuff. So it's going to be me talking most of the time. So yeah, so I slow down things, and right away you can hear there's a ton of echo. So I'm just going to keep everything dry for now. And by the way, we have some processing here. I can remove that, that's not used. So we're already hearing an echo. I can remove the reverb, imager. We're going to keep the limiter just in case in the compressor. Okay. So this is the sound coming straight out of the microphone, pretty much. Hey, Terrible Fire, how are you doing? So typically when I have a lead like that I want to be just strong, because it has to be strong and present, I double the lead. So you see a mandolin right and a mandolin left here. They're playing the same stuff. It's two different recordings. They're playing the same stuff. I do some trickery just to match them exactly to each other. You can see like they're pretty much like right bang on. If I need to, and then I pan one typically 20 to 30 right and left, and the reason you'll hear right now is, we're gonna keep the limiter here just in case we've peaks. The reason is just to add more presence. So if I have it centered, it'll sound like this. So it's okay, but if I have two separate tracks, and I insist on that, it's not just the same track that you've copied over and put on the other side, because that's just, it's the same thing as having one track centered. But suddenly, so suddenly you have, you get zero variation, but suddenly you have a much wider sound, much more powerful sound, and a much more interesting sound, because there's, you can see there's discrepancies in levels and volume and probably attack and way of playing certain sections. That just adds a little bit of variety between the right and left. Having it 50 right and 50 left would bring too much emphasis on that difference. So if we have it like that, so suddenly you're hearing everything a bit more clearly on each side. There's always they always meet at the center, but it makes things too obvious. So I find that window of 30 to 50. So by the way, this is 50 is 100% one way. I don't know why Ableton Live doesn't have 100%. They call it 50 because it's just, you just have it on 50% of the headset, I suppose. But so 25 would be double that. So it's like 50% to 60%. Banjo secrets. Yeah, I don't think that's a secret panning, it's just on the lead, it's not done often, but I like it, especially in an acoustic instrument, that they just need that more presence. So on top of that, I have some EQ just to, actually, let's just have that one without EQ. So you can see in the EQ here, I do a high pass. I just kill completely, pretty much everything below 40. I start at 100, kill them pretty aggressively. And here I start killing stuff over 10,000K. First, because I'm old and probably can't hear anything, so there's no point trying to control stuff I can't control, but also it just prevents those high frequency from making too much noise. And it's the stage where things start becoming a bit too bright and a bit too aggressive. There's two aggressive areas. There's that 1K level here around to the, what is it here? What's the spectrum? Is that 2, 4, 6? I don't know. So yeah, just between I'd say 800 and 2Ks really is your sort of aggressive mids. Then it smooths out a bit. You get those highs, and then that area you start getting into like around 10K, 9 to 12K. It's sort of the aggressive highs that you probably want to tone down depending on what you have. Sometimes you just want them if you have white noise and you just want that effect, but usually that's when I tone them down. And I just enhance the bass because that area here, what is it? It's 2 and 2 is. Yeah, so it's around the 344 hertz. it's sort of a nice spot for the mandolin on the bass. It just brings out that woody sound, and we sort of tone down. You know, it would have been middle. We tone down those mids, and just slightly enhance. So we get that the highs. So we get that woody sound, a little bit of highs, and it just makes a more softer and yet present sound. So this is without, and this is with. Try again. So it's a little bit more woody, wooden, and present in the bass register. Bass for the mandolin, like this is pretty much the bass register here, but it's sort of the sweet spot here for the mandolin, and a bit more present, a little bit high, but it doesn't get too aggressive. If we didn't do that, if we had too many of those mids and highs, we get those very kind of sharp, aggressive sounds. So we don't want that. So this is usually my setting for the mandolin. So I do that on both sides. And here you can see I have 2 delays. I was experimenting with different delays. I didn't use this one. And I use a pretty heavy delay, quite late and quite sort of out of sync, just to create a sense of just big echo as opposed to timed echo. And something I do very often when I have a big echo like that on 2 different instruments is I change it. So here it's on the every 6 beat of 16, and here I have it on every 4. No, yeah, on this one. No, this one every 4. Is the setting the same? Oh yeah, and I pan the delay slightly on one side and slightly on the other side, just to create something a bit more interesting echo-wise. So stuff like that, you don't necessarily do it when you record. I typically record everything dry, without any effect, maybe a tiny bit of EQ just to make it easier on my ears when I record over existing instrument. And then after that, once I have everything done, I do a very light mastering of what I think should be, the master should be. And I go back to each track and just add my effect and refine. When I say mastering, sorry, I add the delay and some reverb on the master, and then I go back to each track and just add whatever I feel is appropriate or would make it work. And I've saved a lot of arrangements that didn't sounded quite flat and uninteresting. You can save a lot of arrangements by just doing something like that, by just doing iterations of mastering, going back to each track, mastering, going back to each track, just to refine everything. It's not usually recommended as a studio engineer that you do something like that, but I find that it works for me because I have the time to do it. A studio engineer wouldn't necessarily have the time because they want to do stuff as fast as possible because they charge by the hour, and their client, don't want to pay for extra hours and them experimenting that way. So yeah, so that's I have time to do that kind of stuff. And usually for those of you who are in Patreon, that's when I release a cover late, or when I say I wasn't happy with the mix or the arrangement, that's usually what I mean. Like the process of doing that kind of stuff is not ready. And so this is where it sits in the mix now. So we continue with the flute. Yeah, this is the accordion. So I think we need to go back to the... Is that one of those tunes where there's two lead melodies concurrent? Let me just go back to the original here. So this is where I need to make a choice and open up the tune slightly, or scale down what's going on. If you listen to the lead instrument, there's that lead melody that we just heard on the mandolin, but there's a second lead, or what should be a harmony behind it, but it's actually another lead that does its own stuff. So it's a bit too annoying. So that lead is this. It's this instrument, and I chose to do it on the accordion. So it's that second now. Let's play it again. Now, if I play the original, you're gonna hear it underneath the main melody. So what this creates, it creates an arrangement that's super busy, and you actually don't get to hear either melody. They're just competing with each other for space. And so that was the decision I made here, and that was the major decision in 3 of these covers, actually, from Castlevania Legends, or 2 of these covers from Castlevania Legends, that do the same thing. It's just they had 2 melody, or a melody and what should have been a counter melody or a harmony, just competing with each other for space in the arrangement. So instead of doing that, I actually started with the main melody one time round, and on the second time round, I start with the second melody, and you can see I've seriously here toned down or the volume of the lead melody. So what we get is a break here after the flute comes in. I have a clean break, and there's a reason I do that clean break, is to actually establish a clean break, and we start over with a new melody, and it just creates a tune that's much longer than. So here what I do is I start with a new melody, and I borrow a little section from the main melody, and I tone the volume way down here just to add a little bit of emphasis. So that main lead, that first lead, actually becomes a counter harmony, counter melody or whatever to the second one. And I found at the time that it was just making the whole tune flow much better. And now you can actually hear that beautiful part, because it's actually a lovely, cool part. And that break is there, like I said. I use 3 instruments, you'll see later, just to create that big stop, very dramatic, and pretty much abrupt end to the tune. And we start with a new tune suddenly. And it took me a while to actually just find this, because my initial recording was pretty much everything all at once, like in the track, and that didn't work. You know, it was just too busy, too muddy, too rough. second time around, I don't do a break. It flows directly into the main melody again, because as we played this one and it goes more into longer notes, I slowly, and you can see there's big gaps where I omit a note from the main melody. As this one extends its notes to longer and becomes more of a sort of, in this case, a counter melody, this melody takes over, and now we can continue the tune over with the main melody starting back. And again, I don't play the second melody until we get to those long notes here. So it's the last time round, and in this case you've heard another break, you've heard that instrument again, and I actually add 2 beats here just to create a little bit of tension, a little bit of catching people off guard by just having nothing for 2 beats or just those 2 beats. And I start over with, in this case, the original arrangement, which is the first melody and the second melody playing together, because at this stage we've played this 1, 2, 3 times. It's the 4th time round, and the listener should be used to both melodies being played, and you know, it won't come as aggressive and in your face at this stage if we play them together. And having those 2 beats again just creates a break in the arrangement and indicates that there's something coming. So something is about to happen again, and now we have the full melody that is played like the original. So you can hear straight away it's much busier, and but at this stage, if you listen to it on so on, it's more aggressive. If you listen to the entire piece as one piece, flowing into, you know, one section here that is fairly much more bare than this section here, just flows naturally. I've introduced all these instruments on all these sections at different points just to make you get used to that entire arrangement, and now we can have the full realization of the arrangement, which is everything played together like in the original. So this is roughly about as aggressive and full as this. See what I mean? So this one, well, all these Castlevania is very interesting to cover, and there's a lot of that sort of a juggling, and that's only on 2 tracks. You know, it's the 2 lead tracks, just to make things a bit more natural and palatable. So the other thing was I brought in the flute in the break. There's a break here. So it's a clear second section, and to me it was a clear second section. It changes pace, it changes rhythm slightly, and I felt I needed to emphasize that by having it played on a different instrument. So I chose the flute, and I break the rhythm, which is 4/4 into what 4/8, something like that. So we go from bum 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 to bum 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 bum. Just half the beat, and it slows down everything, and it allows me to create some space to use the flute and have the flute just highlight that melody. I cut down some of the backing here. I add some stuff so you can see here. I had these instruments just playing whatever they are. I think that's a track of 2 tracks of accordion, one on top of the other. What is this? What is this? Oh yes, so that's the, instead of playing the bass on the U bass, I add a line of bass on the banjo. I'll explain why after. So I have this, and then yeah, you can see the beat here is just crazy fast, and here just have to snare really. And I add some tambourine, yeah. So the flute, oh yeah, and the accordion. So what's on the accordion here? So on the accordion, I have again some pretty aggressive EQ. So let's just take everything down. So this my accordion, and I use the low reed. So I have a few buttons where the keys are, and you can select different reeds. And I like to use the low or the high reed. I don't use the 2 reeds together. That creates that sort of very, very accordion-like sound. That's sort of a natural double reed chorus type of stuff. That is a very French, if you know what I mean. And I tend to use just 1 reed, and then I add stuff in post-processing. So in this case, I had a chorus. Very light chorus, as you can see, like it's not set too much. It just adds a bit of phasing, and I do some heavy EQ. I take down the high mids altogether. I leave a little bit of mids here. I crank out the bass, but I really crank out those high mids or low mids, and to soften the sound, because it's quite harsh and aggressive. And because the phaser usually sits a chorus, well, if a chorus is a phaser and a flanger, usually kind of they like that area, because this is where you're going to hear most of the change. If I move stuff, so because the chorus sits there, we start hearing a bit more of the chorus. Play Yvette. On top of that, I have some heavy delay again, set super high in the mix. Like this is what, 39%, like 50% is half of the echo, half of the original, half of the original mix, half of the echo. And then if you go over that, you have more echo than original mix, and it can make stuff interesting, but it can sound very muddy. Because your echo then will come first, create some crazy sounds. So I have quite a heavy delay, and very little feedback. It's only repeated once, and that's it. And I use this tool, which is called Ozone Imager, which sort of creates a stereo image of your sound it takes the frequencies and sort of splits the frequencies and sends some of the frequency more right and more left. And aside from creating those crazy graphics, it just it widens your sound. That's without. That's with. So that's that. And on the flute, I have this. So this one is a simple flute. I use Melodyne on the flute. And Melodyne is like I was going to say it's like an auto-tune. It is an auto-tune because the flutes have slight imperfection with your breathing. They can sometimes sound off. I don't think in this case it affects it, but I use it by default. Yeah. Not much. I can't really hear it, but it's just it just helps me tighten the whistle, help have it just right in the mix, as opposed to it sounding slightly off, because these are tunes that people are going to listen to many times, and we listen to them every day on the Banjo radio. So I use Melodyne on the flute very more often than not, really. Even if I don't hear any notes out of tune, I usually try to stay right in tune, but stuff can get through sometimes that I don't notice right away. But so even if I don't hear anything out of tune, I just use Melodyne just to tighten the mix. So I have that. I have again a echo on this, a bit lower in the mix, and add a low flute. That is not in the original, but it just comes to it creates, because there's so much echo in the first flute, it creates just a support for that little flute melody and a little harmony in the background. So there you go. You feel it hurts to wear on you. You're late for the premiere. What are we breaking down? It's Castlevania Legends Highest Castle Floor. It's this tune here. Fear not, Accordion. I will do a replay. I'm recording all of that, and I'll have a replay on the VOD channel. So maybe on the main channel. I think these could be interesting to have on the main channel. Probably not, actually. Probably not. People don't like these extra stuff on the main channel. They just want the music. Okay, so that's the flute. What was this? Now, this is a trick I like doing, and it's so let's listen to this one first. There's not much. I've been much more adventurous in later covers on the accordion, but it's something I started doing with was the Dr. Wily cover, just using phaser and flanger and just different effects on the accordion. So in this case, I use a phaser. So this is tracked without anything. And here I use a phaser, and it's one of those kilohertz. That entire kilohertz collection is worth getting. They're really good plugins. You know, very few knobs, like not much. Just very simple to use, and they're quite good and powerful, and I use them in every cover products, and they're quite cheap. Are they free? There you go. There you go. What is the one is in? Yeah, the compressor, distortion, dynamics, filter, phaser, and reverb. The only one you don't have here is the I have the whole lot, but you can get that phaser that I just used, the reverb, and the compressor is quite good as well. So you can get them for free, but I think I got the entire toolbox starter. Is that it? Free plus 6 pad effects. Come on, click on this. No. Okay, starter. I'm not sure what's okay. So that's the free one is the chorus delay, gain, limiter, and stereo. Oh, that just actually that has you sorted. The delay, gain, limiter, and then the other one adds everything else. So and these are 99 for the whole lot. But if you get the free one, you get quite a lot of stuff. Like A 3-band equalizer is handy. That chorus, the delay, certainly. I use that a lot as well. And the limiter is handy to have. Anyway. This is not a plug. So I use that, and I use again that tool, Ozone Imager, which I think is free as well. Just to widen the sound slightly, not an awful lot on this one. But if you're wearing headphones, you can probably hear a little bit more highs on the right one. Is it the right? Yeah, that should be the left with the cable. And the lows are probably separated on the left one. And because of the phaser, it just it enhances that width. So I use that, and then I use another accordion here. And I cheat on this one because I've taken this accordion and I've copied and pasted it here, and I lowered the pitch by 12 semitones, so it's an octave lower. But what I do instead is I don't put the same effects. I actually have a flanger and a heavy EQ. So I use the imager first in this case because can't remember why. Oh yeah, because I wanted that white sound, and I wanted that white sound to modulate to the phaser, as opposed to having the flanger modulation being widened. It's a choice, but if you change the order of some of your plugins when you do something specifically, something like that, copying an instrument, it actually creates a new instrument, and you don't have phase cancellation happening or phase doubling. So I had a flanger on top and just a heavy EQ on the bass, just to really just crank up the bass. And I have this sitting low in the mix. So together, so that was the first or second time I was doing something similar. Was it? No, I'd done that on the Castlevania before, Castlevania covers before. But instead of actually copy and pasting, I started recording an extra track, just specifically to avoid that sort of phase cancellation. It works like that, and yeah, and I have it just played, so when the flute comes in, which is this section here, I kill the high one and just have the low one, just to create a little bit of a tension in the... So you have the accordion here. And that accordion role really is to complement the bass. So it sort of follows what the bass does tightly, really. Actually, both accordions. This one is sort of meant to add a bit more of a aggressive type of vibe, like we would have from an electric guitar. In fact, it wouldn't go astray to have some distortion on this if you added some. Let me just bring this up. If you added some hybrid, let's just say for argument's sake, we just add some distortion here on this instrument. It's going to be super loud. And you just do an EQ afterwards, just to take out those like high and mids, just to make it a bit warmer and softer in the lows. But you could easily add some. You could easily have a distortion on this, and it would just almost sound like an electric guitar. In fact, I've done that in a couple of recent covers that are not out yet, but you'll get to hear that effect. You'll probably recognize it that I've said it. Let's bring this guy back here. Okay, so this is the accordions just sitting on top of the bass here. So before I actually look at this one, let's just have the bass. So the bass is usually very straightforward. Oh yeah, I have this effect that I use sometimes very often. It's just so I used to do it by just playing the note and increasing the volume pot on the bass. And that was tricky. It took me it would take me a few takes and that kind of stuff. So what I do now instead is just to save time, really, and the effect is the same, except that you don't have that ending. I probably should have cut that, in fact. So this is so instead what this is, it's just a bass note that is reversed. And I do that just to create just a little bit of a sweeping tension before things arrive. So here we have just the volume rising up, but in this case it's just the volume of the bass rising up. But because the bass is such a short sustain, I do it this way. And in fact, I do something similar with the bouzouki. So it's just a little trick that I use just to add a little bit of dynamics in the mix. Okay, and you'll see that little trick over and over in a lot of my arrangements. It's just to create tension and make things a little bit more interesting. So the bass is fairly straightforward. We just have. It's not even that clean. It's I didn't actually clean the transients or anything like that. It's just straightforward. You can hear my fat greasy fingers on this, and I don't even think I have much going in terms of effects. I kill the lows because there's a lot of booming in that bass. Like you can see here, typically you shouldn't master or do any EQ with a visual aid like that. You should just do it without it, kill it, and just do it this way. But I suppose I got used to doing it, so I actually don't look at the visual representation of the sound form, but I just know to kill the subs here, really. And we have quite a lot of high mids. I'm not sure why actually I added those mids. Oh yeah, it's to help it sit high in the mix without, yeah. So very often, if your first reflex would be to increase the sound of the bass or increase the lows on the bass to have it be more present. That's a mistake a lot of people make. If you want your bass to be more present, just keep the bass where it is, but actually increase those frequencies or those highs. It'll make it more present in the mix because it will enhance the transients. This is why I didn't kill the transients. See, it's not even in time, the bass. But and it'll help it sit a lot more in the high end of the spectrum of the mix, and because you hear it there, your brain will actually make the connection with the bass, and now you'll hear the bass more. So yeah, it's not that there's a ton of bass, so that the bass is cranked up. It's actually the highs that are cranked on the bass, and the lows. I mean, I've cut everything, and there's just a little bump due to the filter, the pass filter here, that killed those subs. So it feels like it's a boomy bass. It's not. It's actually quite a bright bass. So here, instead of playing the original bass, I do a bass line that I just made up on the spot, I suppose. But the original bass line that is then suddenly played with the banjo. And it's one of those things that is, I don't know, just from habit and trial and error, and just you think about it on the moment. I needed this section to be a clear break, and instead of having the bass continue playing those that line, I wanted to create something slightly offsetting. Slightly mysterious with that whistle, and having that the accordion just on the bass. I create sort of continue that, so I have it in the continuity of what happened before, but now I change the bass line on the main bass and I switch to the bass on the, which is not a bass, it's an octave higher. And I think it's pretty much the only time until the end where I throw everything the cover has to offer all at once. But it's the only section where, again, it's that same section here where I use the banjo as a bass in this arrangement. And instead of playing the same stuff on the bass, which would actually just muddy then the bass line, I just add something that's sort of complementary to that. There's quite a lot of highs in this. So that's the bass. Not much effects on this, just a bit of EQ here. Not much going on. And what is this guy? Oh yeah, so we get into the bouzouki. Oh, that's my center track for the bouzouki. So, God, we've done quite a bit. How are we doing for time? We still have 53 minutes. We're doing okay, actually. I think an hour is going to be just the right amount of time for something like that. Or is it? Oh no, we have a lot of stuff in the rhythm section. Let me just catch my breath for a second. everything. thrown at once. So, and you can see like everything is just full track. Anyway, so let's move on to the accompaniment, which is used to be what I used to do when I was playing Irish music. I was pretty much playing. I was playing a little bit of lead and melodies and that kind of stuff, but mostly I'd be hired for accompaniment bouzouki. So that's stuff that I add on top of the existing track. Most of the existing tracks is just my own accompaniment, and I think that's what really gels my arrangements together. It's those either on the guitar. Rarely on the guitar, actually. It's mostly on the bouzouki and the ukulele. I'm falling in love with the accompaniment on the ukulele. And it's those... That's all I'm doing. Oops. Yeah, so for the breakdown, instead of just going for plain chords, so here I did something for that break. I just cut the bouzouki altogether because I want all the sound to die. And just have that ginormous effect or bass, which is actually the didgeridoo, and a few drums and a ton of echo. But how cool is that sound? Oh. So yeah, so bouzouki is again, this case, very little process. The bouzouki can sound on its own quite dry and bassy. It's like you get fired from a reality show. Yeah. Yeah, something like that. You're out. Boom. Yeah, actually, that's exactly what it sounds like. So bouzouki is just that's really all it is. Just this, and then we have. Boom. So what I do for the bouzouki, typically you can hear what it sounds like here. Typically I double it, and in this case I send like one completely to the right, one completely to the left, because it's going to sit very low in the mix. The detail isn't going to strike out, come out to you as much, and it's going to create that lovely, beautiful white sound. So if we only had one track, this is what it would sound like. If now we have both one right, one left. In this case, because there's already plenty of bass, when I said I killed the bass, there's still plenty of bass. I usually, and I probably did that afterwards, I really kind of lowered the bass, killed out everything under 100. I didn't really address the mids. I wanted that sort of harshness in it, but really cranked up the highs. And what we have is a much brighter sound. That contrast with, because we have that bass, and we have that, and just here we're gonna have this. So that's plenty of stuff in the bass register. I don't want to add the bouzouki to muddy things even more. I'm happy with things being as clear and bright as they are, which is usually something I really try to have every instrument sit in their little pocket in the spectrum, so they don't they overlap slightly, but they don't compete with another instrument, and that's really what you want to make your mix clear, especially with so many tracks. You want stuff to just sit in their little pocket. Even if you lose some of the characteristics of that instrument, at least the instrument is not going to compete with something else, because that's something that can happen. And Streamlabs just freaked out completely. So yeah, I've lost all monitors. So again, it seems to happen after an hour of doing stuff on Adobe, on Ableton. Hopefully you can still hear me. Just let me know. So yeah, and here I have a middle track that comes in on that first arrival of the flute, playing the same stuff. You can hear I don't even clean the sound of my fingers, just sliding across the strings, because a lot of people like to clean that. I like to leave it in. First, it adds a bit of a texture, and just a bit, it's more natural. I don't know. Like, that's crazy here. Actually, I played this, it happens on the right and left. Yeah. That's a technique being consistent here. You can hear it. You can hear it now that I'm telling you, but you're probably going to go back to every cover and then trying to listen first. It's everywhere. Makes it sound as really being played. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I don't like. If I do this regularly, you're gonna hear tracks with Fiona in the background, with dude barking. I don't have the cleanest recording environment, so it just there's a lot of sounds. There's a lot of stuff going on. So I bring it here, and then I killed that middle track. I like having a middle track. It's actually more interesting here. Play very often that middle track is going to play plain chords just to add that harmonic structure, like to establish the harmonic structure, and then the rhythm structure is going to be done by those two side tracks, or right and left tracks. But this one is going to be just playing plain chords. Something I do very often. Just have 3 backing tracks. One right, one left, just playing rhythm or rhythmic pattern, and the other one's just playing plain chords just to establish that harmonic structure. And this one I've left the bass in it because I want it to sit with everything else. So together, it's just, I like them. They complete each other. There you go. And in this case, I didn't do anything else to it. I think I just added, I'm seeing a Valhalla plugin. Yeah, I think I was trying to add something and just ended up making it too dull. It sits nowhere really. It just, I think it ends up sitting on like higher on top, and it's not very nice. Yeah, anyway, it's personal choice. I didn't like that. Actually, I can delete that altogether. No effects on this really, just as almost dry, minimal EQ. And that's it really for the instrument backing lead, that kind of stuff. We're going to move on to the rhythm section, but this is the tune without any rhythm added to it. And when I say music is rhythmic, this is what I mean. You need those beats, you need those percussions, you need everything. So rhythm-wise, I have a kick here. Depending on whether I have time or not, I will steal the kick from something else. In this case, I think that was the kick from Spitball to cover. Yeah. So I have the kick here. Usually I have one or two kicks sitting on top of each other, and I EQ them quite aggressively, as you can see, just to get those, just the sound I want, and have that kick sit exactly where I want it. This is what the kick is. This is the kick with crazy EQ. So this kick doesn't have a lot of highs, so really crank up the highs. Here, let me just have no... Because again, a kick has tons and tons of sub and lows, and as you can see, like, it has a ton here. So what I do is, because I don't have anything below 100, I crank up the kick here just to make it more present there. Add a little well, without it sounding boomy or anything like that. And I let the kick just shine there, but I also crank it way up after 1K. Actually, I could have added here just a low pass, well, is a technically a low pass, just to kill stuff that's higher than that. But now we have a much more present kick that can be heard. Now keep in mind, I don't use any side chaining on these covers, none whatsoever. It was a choice. I was just trying to have everything sit in the right place, as opposed to forcing the kick to come through with a sidechain. I'm sort of reassessing that judgment one cover at a time. Maybe I think at 2 covers I added a slight, very, very light sidechain just to make things a bit clearer. Not one of those pumping sidechains, but something just to bring the kick a bit higher. But it's not EDM, so we don't need to have that kick just be so bright. Seb Julian, you got to go. Thanks for the behind the scenes. Truly interesting. No problem. I'll have the replay out anyway, so you can watch the rest. We're nearly done. I'm just going to go through these instruments rather quickly here, because there's not much to say. They're just here to complement everything else. So you need those beats, but they're just there to serve a purpose. So this is the kick, snare. Again, sorry, heavily processed. High EQ, and I have a second kick just to which was a kick. This one was recorded for this, but this snare, so it was stolen from Tarikan for those sort of white noise. And together they just create their own sound. So this was the original snare I recorded. Come on. So we got a snare with a little bit of white noise and something trailing off at the end. I think there was a shaker there. What did I say? No, I use a metal brush, and what we hear, that stuff at the end of the kick, here, somewhere here, is the sound of the the metal of the brush just shaking because it was my granddad's brushes. He had a drum kit, and they're old, and also they're fanning out like crazy. So what we're hearing is those bouncing against each other. There's like wires coming out in every direction, but I like the sound it creates. And I got my own snare, unique sound. We've got some supposed to be the cymbal, which is my hand just going on the skin of the banjo. So together with this and this and this. We got hi-hats. So this is done with this guy, this brush, just against something, sometimes with my hand. I think something like that, hold on. And that's sort of rhythm, and I have on top of that a second one doing the same stuff, and I think I'm seeing I just borrowed that from Tarikan as well. And that's the same stuff, just going slower there. And I think I do that on the wood of the Baron, or on the edge, the rim. Yeah. Okay, so we have that, and I have a tambourine coming when the flute comes in, just to... I like using the tambourine as a response to the hi-hat. So we got this sort of very assertive sort of rhythm. Like very, very in place, very assertive, and then the tambourine does the same stuff, just on the beat, but it feels a lot more sort of inquisitive or questioning. You know, and I use that for when the flute comes in. No. Oh, I thought I did. Oh no, it's on the second time round. So. So on the second part, and it's sort of the answer to the second part, but we have that tambourine just sort of tempering the assertive nature of that hi-hat, and we do something similar here. And where is the... Oh yeah, and I use it again here for when the flute comes in. And I don't know, I always associate the tambourine in that context to a questioning, and that type of hi-hat as far more assertive. Just my weird head. We got a triangle, very like super low in the mix. There's probably no need for it, to be honest. I don't think anybody can hear it. It's there. It's just it's crazy far, but it's there, and I think sort of subsonically it's probably adding some quality to the whole thing. I got a crash that I didn't record this one for this cover. I borrowed it from Turrican. Interesting. And I use the same trick I used for the bass, just to create some tension before a crash, I use a crash in reverse. So this is the I think this one I recorded for this. I think I recorded this one and I ended up using the Turrican one as the main, and use this one for reverse effect. So I reverse it and I don't play it through. I just cut it before, well, the beginning of the crash, and it creates this. And before whenever if I do that, if I reverse stuff. It's like the bass. I used to do it manually, and this I used to do it by just sliding very slowly in reverse my hand over the banjo, and it used to take me a lot of takes to get it right. I'm much faster, but sometimes when I think about stuff like that after recording everything, and I don't really feel like re-recording like just one track, taking the instrument, setting everything up just to record that sound, I just reuse a sample. That's why I have a library of samples. So in this case, that's what I did. Well, yeah, I recorded this thinking I was going to use it as a crash, and I ended up using it as a reverse crash, which is what a reverse crash is. It's just a normal crash in reverse. And I use it quite a bit. In fact, I use it in a lot of covers, this sort of oh, I used a crash here. Okay. Here you can hear I just use it right before the. I have a piece of wood with a ton of echo. And these are custom pieces of wood that I've turned on the lathe. And I have a few of these. They create a different note, so it's handy. It's not these guys, but these guys. So these are when I need a thicker, bigger sound. I have smaller ones. I think this is... no, they're both Hawthorne. And again, that's one of those things that is just there. You don't even notice it, but it just adds a bit of I don't know, mystery. Create the note before the edit. Yeah. I have a series of them. If the note isn't quite right, I do tinker with it. But I've 6 or 7 that I've just made. Yeah, and yeah, and here we've drum. We have and we have that didgeridoo, which is heavily processed with some Valhalla. Super massive echo just to create crazy sustain, and yeah, and what we get is and it's just me just going that's it, and it just creates that. For dramatic effect, I had that big drum, and I have the kick, and I have the snare and the snare that I cut abruptly because they're coming from here, and you want continuity in that. If those two weren't there, it would feel odd. You lose the continuity. It wouldn't feel natural. But here we have that snare, and I think I have the sound of the that big sheet somewhere. Metal sheet added to that, and I have an egg shaker, just an egg shaker going psh. And that is it. That is all the tracks. That is all the tracks used on this cover. The last thing I do is on the mastering, so we need a compressor. So I like this compressor. It's the stock compressor with the Ableton Live, and it just gives you a visual representation of what's being compressed, how much, and etc. etc. I use the makeup, so it actually make up for the loss of volume by increasing everything. So you want to be careful with that because it can actually peak. So you just want to make sure your volumes are right and it doesn't peak once you apply the makeup. I apply another reverb. EQ, ozone imager. And I apply a final limiter. Very often, once you've done your compressor right and your levels right, you don't need the limiter, but I just like to have it as a security. And this is the Real Stream plugin, so you can hear everything. But yeah, there you go. That's Soggy Bollocks. How are you doing, dude? How are you doing? Is that your first time here? I'm a 4 or 5 string man. I'm a 4-string, a tenor banjo is what I play. With a difference, my correct answer is 6-string guitar. My banjo is actually a custom tenor banjo, so I use a low C string. So it's an extra string that sits below the G string, and it's a low C that I sometimes tune to low D as well. But usually it stays at low C because yeah, it's tuned fifth. Fancy indeed. Yeah, it's a custom. It's a local maker, and when I went to get a tenor banjo made, I did ask him. I didn't think he'd say yes, but he was actually very excited about the idea of making something like that. So he made it custom for me. So I should talk to him about it. Maybe getting a custom banjo guy Ollie model. But it's about $1,000 though. I don't think there'll be many takers for many takers for a grand issue of a custom tenor banjo. Yeah, that's what a good instrument. My bouzouki is about $2,000, you know. And I'm the first one to say you don't need expensive instruments, but these were my sort of jamming, touring, recording instruments. So I wanted something that I could rely on for playing in gigs live and that kind of stuff. The rest is rather cheap, all things considered. They're just stock instruments. Built a mandolin in college. Yeah, my mandolin was about, I think, 400, which is just very as stock as it gets, really, like for a mandolin that doesn't go out of tune, you know. Anyway, folks, this is it. This was just a bit over an hour, but I think, yeah, an hour and a half. I think it's not a bad time to do a cover like that. I might be faster the next time, but I hope this was interesting. And I might do these. Let me know, like, if you want me to do more, just going over a cover and explaining pretty much everything I did and all my choices, why I didn't have the 2 melodies playing all at once, why I had this progression that I chose to go with, why I changed and swapped instruments and that kind of stuff, and why everything fits together with so many tracks, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I'll do another track at some point, maybe next week or maybe in 2 weeks. We'll go over another track, probably I don't know, the Mario track or the Metroid track that I recorded a while back. That might be an interesting one to do because there's a ton of effects and cool stuff in this. So there you go. I'm sorry for people who just arrived a bit late or just now. Problem Child, I'm sorry. Thanks for joining, by the way, and cool to see you. Soggy Balls Ox, thank you very much for the follow. And folks, I hope this was interesting. This is going to be it for me. Let's just see if somebody is streaming. We might raid them. But have a good night, and I'll see those who want to join Banjo Radio tomorrow as usual, folks. Thank you for watching.
Good news, everyone.